Welcome to our podcast, Raising Bigs. This podcast is an ongoing conversation between myself and my young adult son. We're ready and willing to talk about all of the things families might experience in their lives and relationships, both as parents and young adults, from teens to 20-somethings, the good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly. In this episode, we're each sharing 7 things that we are grateful for in our lives right now. It's easy to go through our days thinking about everything that's wrong, needs fixing, or is substandard. This negative mindset can lead to heavy emotions and block your joy. What if instead you choose to focus on what you're grateful for? If you approach your days with a mindset of gratitude, looking for things that you're thankful for, you will find more and more of the good things. This simple action will lead you toward more happiness, and who doesn't want more of that? Let's dive in. I'm Marcy, and I'm the mom.
I'm Kate, and I'm her kid. I grew up with a mom who started keeping a gratitude journal starting way back in 1986. And every year during the month of November, she does a gratitude social media post every single day featuring things that she's grateful for. You've done that for what? As long as I can
As long as
remember
I've been
social
on
media
Facebook,
being
I
around.
think.
Yeah. There was not a chance with her in charge that I could be ungrateful for anything I had in life. And even when things didn't go as planned or we didn't have as much as I wanted or as much as other people had, we were always very grateful for what we did have. When things didn't go well or were hard, we allowed the negative feelings and we fully felt them and discussed them, but then quickly turned the focus into what was going right and all the blessings we were given. So we didn't try to focus too much on the negative. So today I'm going to start with the first thing I am grateful for, and then me and my mom will kind of just go back and forth and name the things that we're grateful for. First thing I'm grateful for is just kind of the simple, basic life necessities, like having a roof over my head and being able to go to the grocery store and, buy the foods that I like to eat. Just kind of all encompassing those like life needs that we have. I know there's so many people who either don't have housing or don't have stable housing or don't have stable food. So being able to recognize that, I know sometimes in my life, at least, I kind of take that for granted and think, oh, it's just time to go to the grocery store and go on with my day. But, sometimes you have to take a step back and kind of really look at what you're grateful for and how blessed we are to have that.
Yeah, because to have the basics is really important. And like you said, there are a lot of people who don't have everything they need. So
Mhm.
important to appreciate it when we have it. My first one is the love of family. We come from a large extended family. And yes, the love of my immediate family living here in my home and my grown adult kids who live outside the home, the other two, but then also all of the extended family that we have surrounding us on all
Mhm.
sides, right? That to me, I know for a lot of people, family is really difficult. And while there have been times where family has been difficult, they've been rare. And for the most part, is just an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the love that we have as a family, both immediate family and extended family.
For
So that would
sure.
be my number one. My number two would kind of be the family by choice. So what I call soul level friendships. So I have been blessed to have this amazing group of, and they're not even just a group, it's like a scattered group, right? Like there's
Mhm.
there's people all over the place that have entered my life and have stayed, right? It's those people who
Mhm.
have been here for the tough times, but also to celebrate the joyful times. And we just connect at a soul level. So these are primarily girlfriends. I do have a couple of guys in the mix that we've been friends for years and years, and we can pick up right where we left off. But these soul level friendships where I feel completely seen and I feel like I can pick
Mhm.
up the phone and just either share something really great that happened or share something I'm really struggling with and get full acceptance and love and probably even some help in being able to walk
Mhm.
through that. So those soul level friendships are my number two. How about you,
For
Cade?
sure. I think that's equally as important as family. My second one kind of goes with both of those things you just said, is just the overall community around me. The friends that I have, the family around me, the different relationships I have, all of that sort of thing. Kind of like you said, there's people who family isn't as easy for them, or maybe they don't have, those friendships where they can just truly be their genuine selves. So the fact that I have those, I'm very grateful for. And I think kind of along with, what else I said earlier, it's easy to kind of take those for granted and just think, oh, my family is supposed to love me or my friends are, we're supposed to have a good time and get along. But when you kind of sit back and, think about the people that are there to support you or cheer you on and celebrate you when you do something, good or kind of be there for you if something bad happens, I think kind of having those relationships, whether it's friends, family, a partner, anything like that, having those relationships that, they can kind of support you in all areas of your life, whether it's something good or bad or whatever is going on. I think that's definitely very important.
So
So
how
that
about
would
your
be
number
my
three, Cade?
yeah, that would be my second one. The third thing that I'm grateful for is my body and what it allows me to do, kind of as we've talked about throughout the history of this podcast. I'm very passionate about working out and running and eating well and things like that. I'm definitely not perfect. I still like to go to McDonald's and get fast food every once in a while, but I'm grateful to have a body that I just ran a marathon a couple weeks ago. That was my second marathon. I've done other races, being able to go to the gym, and then also things outside of fitness, things like being able to run around with my cousin's kids and take my dogs on walks and things like that. I'm grateful for what my body can do in the gym and in the fitness aspect, but also I'm grateful for what it can do in my life and, kind of how that has helped me out in certain areas.
Well, and you have really worked to get your body into that condition, right? So it can
Hmm.
do whatever you want. So I will kind of piggyback on that. And for me, it's health. And it's not just my health, but the health of my family. And I have watched kind of the health and fitness industry since way back in the 70s, right? When people were wearing these lovely leotards doing Jane Fonda or Richard Simmons type workouts. And I've seen all the diet fads come and go, but to watch you with your pure dedication and diving in to learn what works best for your body has really kind of spurred on a health journey. I think that combined with my journey with menopause this year and having a frozen
Hmm.
shoulder last year and a diagnosis of epilepsy within the last couple of years has really made me focus more on health. And I want to make sure my body is able to do things as I get older. We just went through a funeral for my husband's mom, and watching her health deteriorate over several years, like, it really made me stop and think about how health for everyone is such a basic thing, but it is something that we actively have to participate in. Most people your age, most people are lucky and they still are relatively healthy despite how many
Hmm.
McDonald's meals they might have eaten.
Hmm.
But for a lot of people who are approaching middle age, that's when the diagnoses start. And we've learned more. We know more about food and we know more about the
Hmm.
processed foods and things out there that might be making people my age less healthy than they would have been had they learned what you learned at
Hmm.
19, 20 years old. So health for everyone is my number three. And
Hmm.
I'm really appreciating now that I'm on the healing side of the recent challenges that I've had, really appreciating my health on a
Hmm.
daily basis. So for me, that's a big
For
number
sure.
three.
And I think that is something too that has kind of influenced my health journeys, seeing the older people around me, whether that be friends or family or even just people in my community. If I'm out in the grocery store and, I see an older person
Mhm.
who maybe is having trouble getting around, that is something that I've thought about through my health journey is I want to, I don't want to be the older person that can't move and can't, do all of that. And it's just sitting in a nursing home. And so there's been a lot of studies that the work you do in your 20s and 30s and stuff has a
Mhm.
great impact in how that goes on because when it's 60 it's hard to build strength in your muscles, but if you're 20 and 30 in your 20s and 30s and you've been building that strength is going to obviously it's going to deteriorate over time the less you
Mhm.
use it, but you at least are starting off at a stronger point than if you didn't. So that's something that's been influential for me too. But mom, what was your fourth thing that you're grateful for?
Yeah, I don't think you will ever regret, Cade, the work you put in now because it will pay off in spades. It's
For
much
sure.
easier to stay in shape than to
Uh-huh.
be 56 trying to get in shape, right? Like that's a different thing. So my number four was kind of forced on me over this last couple of years, but I have finally learned how to rest and how to not feel guilty for that. I think, as a young mom, even as a college age student, high schooler, like I could probably go back
I
farther
was going to
than
say this is
that.
something I still struggle with too.
Yeah, the ability to rest and be intentional about it, right? Like, oh, my body is feeling some sort of way today and I don't have the energy or my mindset's not in the right place or whatever, to take the
Mhm.
time to do the work. That might look like a nap. That might look like reading something or listening to something. It might look like taking a walk, but it's disengaging from the to-do list. Like,
Mhm.
I have a stack somewhere in my couple bins of papers of to-do lists, and I gathered up the stack of to-do lists, and I had every intention. I'm like, I'm going to take these and I'm going to consolidate them and cross off the things that have been done. And then I was on the phone with a girlfriend yesterday, and I'm like, no, I'm going to throw them away. Like, if it is
Mhm.
something important, it will crop back up. But the Marcy who didn't know how to rest would have been like, I can't sit here on the couch and enjoy two chapters of a novel because these to-do lists are in my head haunting me, right? So I would have chosen to go do that instead or cross some things off that list. So the learning how to rest, I have really appreciated that lesson. And I almost got too good at it for a little while, but I'm kind of back into the swing of things and
Hmm.
learning that it is good to rest and your body needs that. So I would encourage, not only parents who are maybe, doing all the things, chasing the kids
Hmm.
everywhere, doing all the work. Some of them are back in school. Like, take time for you to just rest, but also for the big that are listening, to realize that also, along with your health, is going to take you for the long haul. So,
Hmm.
learning that ability to rest and check out and either do things you enjoy or just do nothing, right? Like,
Hmm.
do no thing. Like, that's hard for a lot of us to just sit
Yeah.
there and look outside and admire the leaves changing color, right? For a period of time.
Hmm.
So that would be my number 4, is the ability to rest. How about you,
For
Cade?
sure. I kind of, like I said, I still struggle with that, but my fourth thing that I'm grateful for is kind of the opposite of that. I'm grateful that I have the energy and the willpower and the time to do all the things that I want to do. Working full time, being in graduate school full time, working out, running, training to run a marathon, spending time with my friends and family, and taking care of my dogs and stuff. Like, that's a lot to do, and I'm grateful that I have the energy to get up every morning and go to the gym and come home and walk the dogs and then work and then stay up and do homework after that and things, and cook meals and all that sort of thing. Because kind of like we've talked about in our own conversations, is as you get older, that energy and that just how
Mhm.
quickly you can do things kind of slows down. And I'm grateful that I have that energy now and to do that. And I think that I still am working to find a balance between getting all of that stuff done and then also having time to rest, kind of like you mentioned. But I also am thinking about, now is the time to, get things like grad school done and things like that. Because as I get
Mhm.
older, things are only going to get busier, potentially as far as it looks as starting my own family or anything like that. I don't know what the future holds for me, but, kind of being able to knock it out now while I have the energy and while I have the time. So that's what I'm grateful for, is just that I'm able to do all of the things that I want to do and want to accomplish.
And take that ambition while you're young, right? And
Exactly.
your body's got the ability to take all
Hmm.
that on. So how about your number 5, Cade?
For sure. The fifth thing I'm grateful for is my ability to travel and my love for travel. That is something that over the past couple of years I've definitely prioritized and definitely kind of put more of an emphasis on. And that's something that I think has really helped me just mentally and kind of helped me just grow into the person I am, experiencing different cultures, seeing different things, being able to travel on my own, being able to travel with people. All of that I think has just really kind of helped to shape me to the person that I am today. And I'm grateful that one, I love to do it. It's something I like to do and being able to go and see all these cool places. But two, I'm also grateful for the fact that I'm able to, just as far as financially and physically and all of that, being able to travel, I think is something that some people don't get the chance to do. And two, sometimes it's kind of taken for granted. And I just think, oh, I wish I could go on more trips. Or sometimes with social media, I see this person, they're on a trip every other week and things like that. But sometimes it's easy just to, or it's better to just step back and realize how grateful you are for what you can do. So that is the fifth thing I'm grateful for.
Yeah, all 3 of you kids inherited that travel bug from me. I think
Uh-huh.
we all really like to have a trip, and I was just saying the other day, this is the first time in a long time that I don't have the next trip on the
Hmm.
calendar. Usually it's planned before I get home from the previous one. So
Hmm.
I need to get on that. That's having that out there, right? Something to look forward to. The next trip is really fun. So my number 5 would be the fact that we get like to push the reset button in life. Like,
Hmm.
just because we have gone down one path doesn't mean that's the path we always have to go down. And I know it is hard for a lot of people to come to the realization that where they're at right now is not really where they want to be, but that you can end that chapter and start a new one. And so
Hmm.
whatever that looks like, if it's, moving to a new city, if it's starting a new job, if it's entering a new phase of life, like, there's a lot of things, starting new relationships, ending relationships that aren't working for you, a lot of ways that you can push the reset button and recreate your life. And so
Hmm.
for me, it's been just an amazing journey. Like if someone would have told me when I was your age what my life would look like and all the pivots and all the changes that I would have executed, I would not have believed them. Like,
Mhm.
and sometimes you look back and you're like, well, that story is not real cohesive and it doesn't make a lot of sense. But I think our days of following one path and following it for our whole lifetime, that is more the
Mhm.
exception rather than the reality. So that ability to reset, to close those chapters and start a new one, there
Mhm.
is something very satisfying in tying the last chapter up with a bow and moving on from that, and maybe even having to do some healing around that,
Mhm.
but then to be able to open a door and step through into a brand new path that you have no idea of
Mhm.
what it's going to look like or where you're going to end up, because it's not about the journey or the destination, it's about the journey, right? I say that all the
Mhm.
time, and the joy is in the journey. And so that ability to reset is my number 5. I'm very, very grateful for that. I've done it multiple times. I've seen you guys do it on occasion,
Mhm.
and I love that you have the confidence and the commitment to your own self-development to do
For
that.
sure. And that's something kind of like you said, I think that a lot of people struggle with is they think whether it be a career, if they think, okay, I start off as a
Mhm.
teacher and that's what I go to college for. Now I have to be a teacher. Or we talked about relationships. If I married this person and, maybe 10 years down the line, either something happens or we lose feelings or whatever, I think some people think, okay, well, I married them. So I have to, stay here or I have to stay in this job or I have to stay in this city or whatever it is. And I think that's a beautiful part of life is you don't have to do anything. You can change what you want to
Mhm.
do. Obviously there's some things in life like if you're trying to move then you need to start saving money to move, and so there's some logistics behind it, but if you really want to, you can make any of the changes you want. Like you said, you're not stuck doing anything.
Yeah, and I love that, which pushes me to my number 6. It's taken me several decades to, find a way to really be able to use my gifts and my experiences to be able to be of service to other people, whether that be us doing this podcast and people listening to
Mhm.
it and maybe having a light bulb moment if they're struggling with their own child, or finding a way to make their relationship with their big better, or
Mhm.
finding a way to make the relationship with the parent better, whether that's coaching my clients, whether that's speaking in front of a group. And that doesn't have to be right the only way. There's a lot of people who are living
Mhm.
their purpose and not necessarily paying the bills living their purpose, but they've
Mhm.
found a way to do it, right? And a way to give back. So I've always said to, and I follow several other people who adopt the same mindset, that to those who much has been given, much is expected. And
Mhm.
so that ability to have a channel or multiple channels in which to give back to other people, I am very, very grateful that I have been able to find that and have been given a platform on which to do that. So that is
For
my
sure.
number 6.
I think that is a good one. My number 6, I would just have to say something that's really important to me and that I'm grateful for is nature and just the beauty of it. Being able to go on walks, go on hikes, go to the beach, all that sort of thing, I think is really beautiful and sometimes taken for granted. Especially, I think like with my brother living out in the Pacific Northwest, not that he takes it for granted, but I know there's a lot of people that are born there and, are raised there and continue to live their life throughout there. So for them, it's, second nature to just be able to go on a beautiful 6 mile hike through the forest and see all these mountains and things like that. And so that's something I think some people take for granted and I really enjoy because living in Kansas, we don't have that much nature attraction. So that's something exciting. Or same thing with people, who are living by the beach or just living in different areas. And I'm grateful too that, our country offers so many different areas. You can go to the mountains, you can go to the forest, you can go to the desert, you can go to the beach, you can go to a city. And just having all of those options to choose from, I'm definitely very grateful for.
Yeah, I am really glad that you picked up on that, because I know you were only in first grade when we moved to
Hmm.
Kansas. And there are a few areas that are classified as nature areas, but for the most part, Kansas is a very flat prairie and lots of wheat fields, right? And so we came from Minnesota, where there was a ton of trees and a ton of water, the land of 10,000 lakes. And I remember the first couple years, you guys asked me repeatedly, like, where's the trees? Where's the water?
Hmm.
And we would really notice it when we went back to Minnesota. But there's also things like the beautiful sunsets in Kansas. Like if you
Hmm.
look west, there is nothing obstructing your view of those sunsets when that sun is going down. So there's definite, positives wherever you live, but that being able to get out in nature, whether that's a run along the creek here in our
Hmm.
little town, or it's being able to travel to take that in. That's
For
awesome.
sure.
So we are already at number 7, Cade. We said we were going to
Yes.
share 7, which only because 7 is my favorite number. So, and it's things we're being grateful for. So I thought it was fitting. But what's your number 7, Cade?
My seventh thing that I'm grateful for that I want to talk about today is I'm grateful for my mom. I'm grateful for you.
Aw.
I'm grateful for the relationship we have and everything you've taught me. Grateful for this podcast and how it's kind of been, something for us to bond over and work on together. And just grateful to have you in my life, whether that is someone to laugh with or someone to ask for advice or someone to be there for me, when I'm going through it, or someone to celebrate with me when something good happens. And I think sometimes, not that I take for granted how grateful I am for you, but I don't express it sometimes, I feel like. And kind of like I've talked about throughout all of these, is sometimes it feels like, oh, that's my mom. She's supposed to love me and she's supposed to be there for me and all that stuff. But, realizing how much you really are there for me and how much you do love me, I just want you to know I'm grateful for you.
Well, thank you for that, baby. I did not know he was going to say that, and I was not going to get teary during this podcast, but I ought to have known better that he was gonna pull that card. But oftentimes we do just take for granted the people that we live with every day,
Mhm.
and so moms work hard, and it means a lot to hear that from you. So thank you for that. So look at the ceiling, look at the ceiling, right? We have to
Try
stop the
not to
tears.
cry too much.
Doesn't work for me.
I should have known that
But
was going to happen.
I will move on to my number 7. So my number 7 is the gift of hope. And, the world is crazy right now. I'm going to post this next week because it will be the first week of November and I will be starting my Facebook posts that Cade mentioned, where every day I put something I'm grateful for. But I think in sometimes these crazy times, right, the people will talk about, the economy is crazy, the politics are crazy. A lot of people are having financial issues. A lot of people are looking for jobs and not finding them. There's just a lot of crazy going on right now. And so the gift of hope, being able to know that there will always be another sunny time, right? So even if things are feeling heavy, like we've said, you can sit in the feelings, but know that you are going to come out on the other side of this. And so when you're able to dig deep and find that hope, even in really tough times, it dulls the sharp pain that you might be feeling in kind of a distraught moment. So I have hope for the future for my future, for the future of my marriage, for my children's future, for my potential grandchildren's future. Like, I have hope for the future of this country and the future of the world, right? And if I didn't have that, I think it would be really easy to fall into a negative spiral. So
Mhm.
for me, hope is a really big piece of the equation and what kind of keeps me going day to day, even when things do feel tough. And so to be grateful for the one thing that keeps me going, I think is important. And so I'm hoping that if you don't have hope in your life, you're able to find a podcast, find a book, find a therapist, find a friend who can help you to figure out why that is,
Mhm.
and to be able to figure out how to add some hope into your life. So that is
For
my number
sure.
7. But I would like to thank you, Cade, for sharing your gratitudes with us. It's
Mhm.
not easy for us to get on here every week and be honest and authentic and vulnerable, but we do it for a reason. And we feel blessed to be able to do this and to have you guys listening. So it's
For
my
sure.
hope that our listeners are going to take a few minutes right now. Find something that you're thankful for and share it with either your parent or your big. If you're listening and you don't have a big, or your parents are no longer around or they're not a part of your life, find a friend. Like, there's always people who can stand in that spot for you.
Mm.
So please share it with someone right now. It also makes for great dinner table conversation if you are raising kids, and it can start little. I remember we used to talk about, back in the day when we didn't know there was better language, but we'd go around the dinner table and we'd be like, what were 3 wins today and what were 3 losses? And
Mhm.
everybody would share. I don't like to talk about losses anymore. I like to call it lessons. So what were
Mhm.
lessons that you learned? But that dinner table conversation or travel time, that is a great time when you are being the mom taxi and you are driving your kids everywhere. It's a really good time to broach the topic of gratitude. So if it
For
becomes a
sure.
habit, it can change the tone of your interactions with the humans that live in your home. And as Cade kind of alluded to, it can change the way you look at your life when you're moving forward and you're no longer living at home with your parents. So from griping, move it to gratitude, from a pity party to a celebration of a life full of appreciation for what you do have instead of what you don't. So we want to qualify this by saying we're not talking about toxic positivity. So when something horrible or disappointing happens, feel the feels, feel them all, share it with each other, process what it means, but then move toward redirection. So a big hug always helps, right? Helps to kind of push that reset button we talked about. But when you're given the negative, when you've given that negative issue enough of your time and attention and you make a conscious choice, right? I'm not going to spend any more energy there. Just remember that life is happening for us, not to us. So we might not know the why right now, but someday we will. And we have so much to be grateful for. Sometimes it's hard to remember that and to be able to see the good. But even if you pick one thing right now in this moment, and remember that gratitude is a practice, and if you do it over and over and over again, the easier it's going to get. The more you focus on it, the more you go through your days looking for things to be grateful for. So, Cade, any closing thoughts on gratitude before you close us
For
out?
sure. Kind of like you said, I think that it's important that sometimes it's okay to be sad about things happening. And I think even just from what I've seen on social media, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I never try to think bad things are happening to me. It's always good things. It's always happening for a reason. And although I do think in part that is a good mindset, it's important to, feel those feelings and recognize when maybe things don't go as planned. But take that moment, feel it all, and then find something positive to see through it and see something that you're grateful for. Even if it's just something little every day, you can probably find something that you're grateful for. And kind of like my mom said, I think that once you kind of get in that mindset, that just leads to an overall life that's, a little happier, show more gratitude, and just turns into a habit. But with that being said, that is a wrap for this episode of Raising Bigs. We thank you all for listening today. We hope you found some takeaways, a fresh perspective, and maybe even an action step or two. Again, we are not experts, but we can authentically share what we're learning in hopes of making the path a little bit easier for those who are listening. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Please subscribe and share with those in your circle who you think might benefit from hearing it. A new episode will be dropped every week on those 3 platforms.
So you can visit my life coach website at marcyhawkinson.com or email me at lifecoachmarcy@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Life Coach Marcy and Instagram at life_coach_Marcy. And Cade, where can our listeners find you?
My handle across all social media platforms is at the Cade Berrigan. That's where you can find me. The best way to contact us or give us feedback is to DM either one of us on social media or to reach out on the contact me page on my mom's website. Again, that is marcyhawkinson.com. We appreciate any feedback, questions, or topic ideas that you may like to share. And we will see you next time on Raising Bigs.
And we're very grateful for all of our listeners. Have a fantastic week.